Brock Purdy, the San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl starting quarterback, has had an unbelievable NFL career. As the 262nd and last choice in the 2022 NFL Draft, he was dubbed Mr. Irrelevant, and it seemed improbable that he would even complete a pass in the league. When he joined the team in training camp, he was listed as the third-string quarterback, right behind third overall pick from the 2021 draft, Trey Lance, and veteran starter Jimmy Garoppolo. Fast forward to now, and both of those players are now backup quarterbacks on different teams, all while Brock Purdy is preparing for his first Super Bowl appearance. No other Mr. Irrelevant has started a game at quarterback, or even completed a pass before he arrived. Now 2 seasons in, and he started in both the regular season and playoffs, has now made a Pro Bowl, is an MVP candidate, and is about to start in the Super Bowl. Which begs the question, is Brock Purdy actually good, or is he simply just being carried? Football is always going to be a team game, and let me just say, the team that Brock Purdy is on is loaded, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You have one of the most dynamic play callers in head coach Kyle Shanahan, first team All-Pro running back Christian McCaffrey, Pro Bowl wide receiver Deebo Samuel, first team All-Pro tight end George Kittle, wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, and finally first team All-Pro left tackle Trent Williams. Rumor has it that Kyle Shanahan told Jed York very early that Purdy was their best quarterback before even playing a game. Once Purdy was forced into action, he blossomed. His rise from obscurity to NFL prominence is similar in some ways to that of Kurt Warner, especially with the jersey number. Warner was forced into action on an offense that was assembled for someone else. There's an old saying, you have to make the most of your opportunities, and sometimes you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow I'm just kidding. Because in the NFL, they only come around so often. Some of the arguments about him getting carried, I can understand to an extent. Some of them are just little dump-off touchdown passes taken all the way by either McCaffrey or Samuel. Definitely an offense any quarterback would love to play on, but with all of this talent comes a lot of criticism, because whenever the 49ers were on a downward stretch during the regular season, it seemed as if Brock Purdy took most of the blame.
Earlier in the year, here's the wrong way.
Yeah, baby boat.
He's the quarterback, that's usually what happens.
I lost.
But in his case, this was different. In those losses, you had some of the stars from their explosive offense not play. This is when you began to see Purdy being labeled as just a game manager more and more. Now, I want to clarify something important. When asking what the difference between a quarterback and game manager is, the answer is nothing on paper. In American football, a game manager is a quarterback. By definition, there shouldn't be any difference, but for football fans and analysts, this is very subjective. Instead of being considered a bus driver, you're a bus rider, considered more of a product of the system rather than your talent uplifting the offense. This narrative was fueled even further by former league MVP Cam Newton's comments. On his podcast, he said, "I've never said Brock Purdy is trash. What I did say is Brock Purdy is a game manager. That's not hate. That's what I feel to be facts, but I will reserve the right to say this."
And if you really want to just be honest, if you add in the defensive talent and you add in the offensive talent, Brock Purdy is the 10th best player on this team.
Purdy's innate qualities do not match with those of the normal exceptional quarterback, but the 49ers continue to win because of their quarterback. He's doing just enough to win, putting together game-winning drives in all of San Francisco's playoff victories this season. After leading the 49ers to the Super Bowl, Purdy said in his post-game press conference that, "I've never been the biggest, fastest, strongest, any of that. I feel like I've always had to sort of fight for what I get, work for what I get. Obviously, my job is to distribute the ball to guys who are open, and then if something isn't there, especially in this kind of game, you have to find a way."
Calm down, go through your reads, take what they give you. You gotta make it happen for your boys around you.
But when you sit back and watch the game film, he possesses something a lot of other quarterbacks lack: field vision. And when I say some quarterbacks lack it, I'm not saying all of them don't totally have it. It just wasn't given naturally. Shanahan thinks it's a God-given trait. I don't think if you don't have it, it's not something that you can just develop. You have to have a certain amount of that, and some are higher than others. And some, I think, can make it better the more football they play and the more situations they get in. But you definitely have to have a certain amount to be able to see the field like that. All of the physical traits Purdy lacked didn't matter. He sees the field incredibly well and has only improved in that aspect over time. Purdy has been exactly what the 49ers have needed at quarterback. Through the first 14 games, Purdy led the NFL in QBR, yards per attempt, expected points added per dropback, touchdown passes, and touchdown to interception ratio. His 9.6 yards per attempt is the highest in a single season in NFL history. He almost beat Kurt Warner's record on yards per attempt from the 2000 season, as do a few other guys from the leather helmet era of football, making him the lowest drafted or undrafted player to win since then. This season, no one has more passing yards per attempt against the blitz, and Purdy's 15 touchdowns against the blitz are tied for the most in the NFL. He now holds the team's single season passing yardage record, surpassing Hall of Famers such as Joe Montana and Steve Young, throwing for just a little over 4,200 yards as well as 31 touchdown passes. He became the first 49ers quarterback in 23 years to pass for 4,000 yards and has the second highest completion percentage of any NFL quarterback in his first 10 starts. While he didn't perform the best during both playoff games, in the end he stepped up when it mattered the most, leading 2 comeback victories in the playoffs. It's not about how you start, it's how you finish. In the first half in the NFC Championship game against the Lions, he completed just 7 of 15 passes for 93 yards, for 0 touchdowns and 1 interception with a passer rating of 39. To put it in perspective, a 39.6 passer rating is what a quarterback would get if they only threw the ball into the ground for incompletions. After a disastrous first half, he stepped it up in the second half, completing 16 of 21 passes for 174 yards for almost 11 yards per attempt with 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and a passer rating of 132.8. Now that I've listed all of those off, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Is Brock Purdy a game manager or an elite quarterback? And the answer is neither. Let's take a look back at the 2013 Seattle Seahawks, their Super Bowl team that played historically outstanding on defense and had one of the top running backs in the NFL. Russell Wilson did just enough to help get Seattle over the hump. Seattle needed a quality quarterback to complete the championship run, and Wilson was a very good quarterback on a great roster, leading them to 2 game-winning touchdown drives in 2 NFC Championship games. In conclusion, while I don't think Purdy is an elite level quarterback quite yet, he's certainly a lot closer to being elite than being considered just another game manager. This whole narrative that he's being carried by a bunch of talent could be used for many other quarterbacks in the league. What? You need talent to win games? Who knew? I wish I could give you an extreme stance on this topic, but I don't see him as either one. Right now, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback on a terrific team. He is neither a game manager nor a superstar. He is also not a direct product of the offense he plays in. Purdy should be considered a high-quality quarterback in an ideal circumstance. But no matter how you view him, just the fact that a quarterback 2 years removed from being Mr. Irrelevant is about to start in the Super Bowl is a story that's amazing on its own, but now sets the scene for what happens next. In the NFL, narratives change game by game, and no other game is bigger than the Super Bowl. While I think he's just in the Hall of Very Good, Brock Purdy's performance in Super Bowl 58 will determine if he will ever be considered elite or forever a game manager.